Hello, hello, hello. Welcome to Kernels of Truth, brought to you by Progress, Kentucky. This week, we got me and a couple of amazing co-hosts discussing the elections are just 75 days away. Who has got the best take on the elections? Mitch McConnell or Andy Barr? They've both been in the national media talking about it. We're going to break down those stories. We're going to look at the Kentucky General Assembly that is in for a special session. And then we have Doug Price coming correct on the legislative process and what it's like to be a witness at one of these General Assemblies. Then we're going to check in with Grayson Vandegrift over in the campaign corner to hear about his race to go from Midway's mayor to the rep for the 56th district. Then we're really excited to bring you an interview with Kentucky author Farrah Alexander about her book, Resistance in the Bluegrass, before we close out with our call to action. So yeah, should be a pretty good show, and we're going to try to bring it to you in just about an hour. But before we do that, are you ready to help turn Kentucky purple? Team or a red state right now where the kernels of truth, we cannot lie to you. But in 75 days, we're going to pick between Rand Paul and Charles Booker. We're going to pick whether or not we're going to give women any reproductive freedom in our Commonwealth. These are big decisions, and we need your voice, and we need your vote. If you want a Commonwealth that works for all of us, please join Progress Kentucky. It's easy. Just follow us on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, wherever you spend time on social media, except for TikTok. We're not on TikTok. We should probably be on TikTok, but we don't have anyone actively involved who is, in that demographic to help us out on it. If you love TikTok and also you somehow have found us, you want to help us get on TikTok, you can do that. You're welcome to join up, volunteer, raise your hand. Let us know what you like to do. If you like what you're hearing on Kernels of Truth, give us a thumbs up. If you listen to this as a podcast, please do leave us a review, because that really helps juice the algorithms and get us in more ear holes. And then most importantly, just like us and share out our show. So, of course, we're not just any random talking head show. Anyone can do a news show on the internet. Anyone can do that. We're not doing that. We're doing a digital demonstration for a more compassionate Commonwealth. So if you come to a demonstration, you need to bring a protest sign. Don't be the person who randomly shows up at the demonstration without a sign. So we're going to check in with our co-hosts. We're going to find out who they are, where they are, and what their protest sign says today. And this is, of course, a very interactive show. So you on the internet, feel free to tell us what you're protesting today or celebrating. You know, you can do I guess just a rally. It doesn't have to be a protest. Maybe you're just psyched about, student debt being canceled for some folks or some amounts. Anyway, my sign. I'm Aaron. I'm coming to you from Charlesburg, which is, of course, a deed restricted community, e.g., a no fun neighborhood on the growth boundary of Lexington. My sign says, "Defend our democracy before it's too late." All right. Who do we have with us tonight? Doug, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Can you hear me?
I can. And I can.
Good. I'm coming to you from Harrison County, Kentucky. Lots going on in our town of Cynthiana. Stop by sometime and get acquainted with our acquaintable town. My sign says, "Why won't Republican politicians denounce Trump?"
And it's not a real question because you don't have a question mark, right? Because we don't really there's no real answer. It's just a cult. It's just a cult. Awesome. All right. And in our third host chair tonight, special guest co-host Nima. How are you?
I'm good. How are you guys doing? My protest today says, reimagine the 606. And I am wearing my coal miner's daughter hat today in honor of the special session kicking off. And I am encouraging our legislators to reimagine, and our local folks to reimagine what the 606 can be once we move through the floods and the rebuilding stage. What can it be? And to dream big in that scenario. So that's my thing today. Reimagine the 606.
I love it. Yeah. It's like there's the recovery. There's like, what are you going to do? How are you going to invest this money? Is it just, are we going to just go back the way it was? Or are we going to do bigger, better? Or are we going to think strategically about our community and how we're going to reinvest in it? As I'm sure people are tired of me hearing me say, because like I bring it up with every natural disaster that happens in Kentucky. I lived in New Orleans when Katrina happened. And I think there were a lot of opportunities to kind of invest and make the city better than it was before, while also making sure that everyone who, was a part of that city has a chance to remain a part of it, right? You don't want to like push people out, but you also, you can't get so caught up that you can't do anything better, right? It's incredibly challenging. It really is. But I think well-intentioned community with really good leadership can leave a community better off for sure. But yeah, horrible going through it. Anything, any updates you want to bring us from, kind of the stuff you're seeing with your people?
Well, I think that this special session is going to be huge because, folks need cash in their hands. And, one of the things that I got really frustrated about this week was FEMA. And, we hear about it, but it just seems to me like, guys, and I could be wrong here, but it seems to me like we're so busy worried about people who might fraud the system that we make it almost not even navigable for people who need the support. And, there's got to be a better way. There has to be a better way that we can respond faster from the federal government level and get money in people's hands instead of treating everyone like a criminal. And, we've got to do better, and we've got to start thinking better about our neighbors. And I think that's the first step.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, the number of denials, right, of initial claims, just astounding. I don't know. It just seems like the instinct should be to help and to say yes to people. And, if at some point in time later you need to call back funds because someone was a scam artist, then do that, right? But
right.
With the I think the assumption that people who are asking for help actually need the help. Right. Well, thanks for joining us tonight. Really exciting, some important news to cover. So we are going to get to the special session again a little bit. We're going to start with the first story, which, we are kind of election fiends here at Progress Kentucky. We really think democracy is super important. And we think every November when we're coming together to make a difference, there's a chance to make our state a little bit better and to put some better representatives either in Frankfort or in DC. Obviously, coming up is this really important midterm, the first midterm for Joe Biden. I think the kind of traditional analysis has been that he's going to lose seats, that the House is going to flip, that the Senate might flip because it's of course super evenly divided right now. It is literally tied. So things have changed recently, though. There are some, the headwinds seem to be, starting to blow in the other direction. Big issues like abortion are playing a role now that Roe v. Wade has been redecided and that those protections have been taken away. Things like what's happened in Kansas on an abortion amendment, gives folks like us in Kentucky hope. And so 2 of our national politicians have been in the news this week talking about the midterm elections. So Mitch was in Scott County and of course talking to the Scott County Chamber of Commerce, because he doesn't talk to actual people. He doesn't talk to constituents. He just talks to businesses. Businesses are his constituents, right? So he's with the Chamber of Commerce. He's chatting with them. He says the GOP have a 50-50 shot at flipping the Senate, which is a significant change from, 4 months ago. He mentions the importance of candidate quality. Now, this is pretty clearly a shot at Trump's endorsements, right, which play a really big role in the primaries. And his endorsements have, because of this outsized role in these Republican primaries, and of course, Trump only cares about one thing, right, which is fealty to Trump, not to democracy, not anyone who stands up for democracy. Anyone who says the election wasn't stolen in 2020 cannot get the Trump endorsement, which means you have to be like, a conspiracy theorist to get Trump's endorsement, which is pretty much the only way you can win a Republican primary in some states, in some situations. So he now has, Herschel Walker in Georgia, the clown in Arizona, a number of really, really bad candidates, Dr. Oz in Pennsylvania, JD Vance in Ohio. All these folks have come before the Trump, throne, and they've bent the knee and said, of course, the election was stolen. And now turns out that's not the best way to determine whether somebody's a quality candidate. And these are people running horrible campaigns, saying horrible things, and making it look much like, Mitch's chances of getting his job back as majority leader are, if he says it's a 50-50 shot, it probably means it's way worse than that. So that gave me a lot of joy. Of course, the best thing was that Trump, he read through the lines, between the lines there, and immediately blasted McConnell as a hack and his wife is crazy and that she's just looking to get rich off China. His wife was, of course, Trump's transportation secretary for the entire 4 years of his one term in office, right? So amazing that the guy has no ability to support his own cabinet, but at any rate, I enjoyed that very much. All right, so then what else? If McConnell gets his way, if they flip the House and the Senate, he went on to say, I think the president will be a moderate. He won't have any choice. And so we'll try to find ways to make some progress for the country during the last 2 years of his term, but not big dramatic change. That would be shocking, if he would actually, if he tried to work with the president, because so far his entire MO has been to try to block the president on every single thing, with a notable exception of some modest gun control and the Infrastructure Act. But he also said, and this one didn't get as much notice, that our elections are secure and very little voter fraud exists. So, Trump, willing to go against Trump and Trump's folks. And then let's see, the second story of a national politician. So our own Andy Barr, who of course is the representative from the 6th district, who we don't like. He was on Meet the Press. I have no idea why he was booked on Meet the Press. This is a lowest rung Republican backbencher, doesn't share anything, doesn't have any power, just went on Meet the Press, spent his time lying about the economy and about the Biden energy policies, saying that gas prices have doubled. That's not true. Gas prices are going down right now, have been going down for over a month. So he talks about this, spending an enormous amount of time railing on immigration and border security, because here we are in Kentucky and the border security issue is really big. If he's serious about border security, has he talked to the Kentucky horse industry? Because I'll tell you what, you should ask them their view on immigration, and whether they want to shut down all immigration coming into our state, because they I think would probably disagree with him about that being a huge problem. His positive vision of the economy was entirely scare tactics about the border and about IRS agents. Of course, Chuck Todd doesn't do anything. We wanted to play this clip, but even though I would say showing you 30 seconds of this would be fair use, I'm very concerned that Facebook and YouTube would disagree. So we'll put a link in the comments. You should just watch the interaction. It's just pathetic. Both Andy Barr, all these empty Republican talking points that make no sense. Chuck Todd letting him basically say it without very little follow-up. He followed up a little bit about the idea that the IRS agent, the budget to increase the IRS would be problematic, citing the current head of the IRS, who was a Trump appointee, saying that he needed more resources to crack down on waste, fraud, and tax abuse. Andy, of course, had no answer for that other than a lie about, Biden's going to raise your taxes, which, of course, if you make under $400,000 a year, the Biden administration is not raising your taxes. Andy Barr goes on to say that none of his constituents care about January 6th, that they only care about the border, fentanyl, and inflation. So watch the clip. It's astounding. He even brought in the baby formula argument, which I'm pretty sure has been solved. He also voted against congressional efforts to increase baby formula availability. Of course, he brought up the price of gas, which I mentioned, despite voting against the Inflation Reduction Act, which, thanks to Joe Manchin, actually requires new oil drilling and sets up the green economy so that you don't actually have to pay so much for gas because you won't need so much of it. So it really is just it was an astounding display of our, two. And of course, his vision of the election is that, the House is going to flip absolutely because Joe Biden's policies are a huge failure and everyone's concerned about the border, fentanyl, and inflation. So anyway, that's what I watched and what I thought was pretty astounding. What do y'all see? What have you seen about these kind of like competing visions? One that maybe Mitch being a little bit more, a little more fact-based, Andy Barr being more kind of high in his own supply about the Republican opposition to Joe Biden. Doug, what do you think?
Yeah, let me. A Twitter person I followed tweeted, "Who is the worst politician in your state?" I wanted to mention several, but if you've listened to the show, you know that I detest Mitch McConnell. I have a long story, which I won't relate on the show, but our second oldest grandson was able to meet Mitch a while ago. And after that meeting, he made the determination that he was going to be involved in politics. After meeting Mitch, he realized that we, the people, need good people to be politicians, completely unlike Moscow Mitch. And my thoughts on Andy Barr. I think he says what he thinks will get him reelected. Oh, and of course, calls corporations, industries to donate funds for his reelection. I think that one could say Barr is typical of most of our congressional delegation, hanging around to live off the public dole while complaining about people who they believe do that by not working. Does Barr work for the people? I think not. How about you, Nima?
You know, when I saw that about not one constituent I know, blah, 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 blah. Well, I'm a constituent. And, you know, it leveled me. I mean, I was floored. I think the last time I've seen this guy out doing anything public was several years ago at Lafayette. This had to be back in 2017. But, you know, it never ceases to amaze me that people who you thought were, you know, moderate Republicans that you could do business with have now embraced this entire lunacy, you know, just to garner votes. And this is what's interesting. It's like Liz Cheney, right? So you think that you like playing with cobras, right? So you play with the cobra, you feed the cobra, you love the cobra, and then you're shocked when you get bit by the cobra. And this is exactly what these folks are doing. They're playing with cobras every single day. They know they are, and yet they continue to do it and knowing that they're going to get struck. It's going to happen. And so I don't understand why they just don't give this entire lunatic fraction a voice at all. Just ignore them. Just drop it. Just let it go. You know, act like it's so disingenuous. And politicians by nature are disingenuous, but this is just absolutely ridiculous what they're doing now. I mean, you've seen with Andy Barr, and I'll tell you who else has been incredibly disappointing has been Jamie Comer. I mean, I don't know what's going on with him, but it's almost like he just got shot into another dimension all of a sudden and is on the lunatic train. I don't know. It's incredibly disappointing to see these folks who you know have better sense continue to play with cobras.
Yeah. It is 100%, you know, like I said earlier, it's a cult, right? You know, Trump has like bent this once proud party to his will. You have to like accept that the election was stolen or say to him the election was stolen because he can't acknowledge that he is a loser, right? Because he's a loser. He lost. And, you know, because there's just this entire fake reality they have to adhere to, and you know, and there's just a steady stream of additional garbage that, you know, and again, I'm probably not winning any friends, Republican friends right now, but it's just disappointing to see those conversations happening. And you're right, Comer's similar. Andy Barr, who seemed like, you know, not a fire breathing radical, you know, now just, oh, let's just lean into the culture wars. What can we do to like make fun of trans kids? Like, what can I do to like make sure that everyone sees that I'm a hardcore Republican, right? Right. That's what his constituents want, you know, not actually his constituents, but you know, the folks that he needs to win re-election. So it's a shame. You know, he's also taken to sending fundraising missives talking about how he's like desperately in need of money against his like competitor who we can't name, because if you then Google his competitor, you realize he's running against you know, a not very legitimate candidate, right? So, but you know, when Andy Barr's, you know, on that train of like whatever the consultants tell me, I'm just going to do it because they know how to get me elected. Like I need to send alarming emails to my base to fund me because there's no, you know, I'm about to shut down my campaign or whatever ridiculous stuff they say, right? It's just, you know, no honor in this crowd for sure. All right, so I think we're going to do move on to story 2. Randy Cravens is in the comments. Randy Cravens understands that Andy Barr is absolutely scared of his write-in candidacy. I'm sure it's true. If you haven't heard, folks, and we had Randy on a few weeks ago, he's mounting a write-in campaign against Andy Barr. So you won't be disappointed if you write in Randy Cravens in the 6th district. And we'll probably have Randy back on the show to check in on the campaign and how it's going. But all right, so we got another story we do want to cover because we got to talk about what's happening at the state level. Really important. They've brought in the special session. We mentioned it earlier. There are twin bills that have been filed in the House and the Senate that would set up an Eastern Kentucky state aid fund for emergencies, which they intend to pass this legislation by Friday. $200 million that will allow for flood relief between now and when they actually come into an actual session. This is very similar to what they did in response to the tornadoes in Western Kentucky. But yeah, I don't know what you guys thought, if you watched any of it or if you saw the news reports. It was just, it seems like they're trying to work together and they're not actually just, showing up to bash Andy. What do folks think?
Well, I was hoping that this was what was going to happen, to be honest with you, Aaron. And because this is the one time that we just need to stop. Everybody just needs to stop. There doesn't need to be finger pointing. There doesn't need to be anything. They need to get in there and get the job done. Now, today, as I was watching it, it looked like they all were very aware that this is what needed to happen. And so, but you never know. They've got a live mic and a camera in front of their face for the next 2 days. They've not had that in a while. And so I'm sure they're having withdrawals. And so, I've got some bets on who's going to jump up and speak the most because they're running against Andy, or who's going to, jump up, not even from the 606, and say Appalachia wrong. I mean, so there's a whole betting line that I've got going on. If anybody wants to get in on that, just private message me later on.
Yeah. Cameras, people paying attention. You would hope that they would play to their better angels, but a camera and a politician, I don't know.
Fool me once, Aaron. I mean.
Doug, what do you think about it?
I do have a prediction. I believe that probably Stivers will be the first one that will say, this is the kind of reasoning we had when we wanted to leave over $2 billion in the rainy day fund, while the governor wanted to spend all that. We had the foresight to know that we might need that money in the future. So that's what I think will happen. Yeah.
I'm sure somebody will, try to make themselves look better. All right. Well, I think we are going to go to our third story. That actually is a callback, one of our most popular segments, and Doug Price's favorite segment because he gets his own theme song. That is right. It is time for Doug Price's Right. Nate, can you bring up the theme song?
No theme song this week. My apologies.
What? What are you talking about? I think we have it. I think we can play it. I'm playing it. I'm going to introduce the
Booger.
Wait. See, we had one.
Thank you very much.
Continue. Sorry, guys.
Okay. Thank you very much for my theme song. I was going to take a break if you didn't give me my theme song. It's time for another edition of Doug Price is Right. Usually this segment is chock full of facts and figures, but this one will be more about facts as opposed to figures. And I might throw in a few suppositions and ideas along the way. Have you ever attended a legislative hearing in Frankfort, either in person or watched it via KET? Have you ever testified at one of these hearings? My first time to testify was at a House Agriculture Committee hearing, and I was invited by my friend Tom McKee, who was my legislator. I wanted to change the Kentucky fence law. I won't go into details, but I felt then and still believe now that the law needs to be changed. But guess who most of the members of the committee are? Farmers. The law provides substantial benefit to farmers and absolutely nothing to an adjacent non-ag owner. The point being, I was talking to an audience completely uninterested in changing the law, but to do nothing is unacceptable. If you want more information on this subject, you can check out my Facebook page at Kentucky Fence Law. So this one and future efforts have all been nothing ventured, nothing gained, as every time I've testified, the legislators didn't listen. But a recent meeting I attended was even worse. Let me describe the setting for these meetings. It's kind of like congressional hearings in that where the legislators sit is above the seating for speakers and other attendees. In other words, they are higher than you, looking down on you. According to an Associated Press article from 2020, those who appear before a legislative hearing in Kentucky may be required to testify under oath. I have mixed feelings about this. If I were required to provide an oath, I probably would do this, but I would also insist that any legislator who testified would have to testify under oath. Am I saying that legislators sometimes stretch the truth or find the truth to support their assertions? You bet I am. As I understand, some committees adopted this practice, but many did not. Last month, I attended the Public Pension Oversight Board meeting where two of my friends, Jim Carroll and Larry Totten, both testified about the possibility of legislators providing a one-time cost of living adjustment to state government retirees. Jim is the president of the Kentucky Government Retiree Organization, and Larry is the president of the Kentucky Public Retirees Organization, both strong advocates for retirees. Full disclosure, I'm a member of the KGR board and a past member of the KPR board. Also, I'm a state government retiree. When I retired, I had the expectation that I would receive a cost of living adjustment. Due to mismanagement by past governors, legislators, the legislature has been unable to provide a COLA for the last 10 to 11 years. During their presentations promoting the idea of a COLA, I was struck by the appearance of almost all of the legislators with their heads down, looking at phones, and not paying attention to the speakers. The chair, James Tipton, was very engaged and listened intently to the presentations, but others seemed to have more important things to do. I sent the chair an email registering my displeasure, but did not hear back. I merely asked him to suggest to the PPOB committee members that they should pay attention to anybody who appears before their committee. The last time I testified, I knew my testimony would have no effect on the vote outcome. But again, one must do something. Here's a quote from Harriet Tubman. "Every great dream begins with a dreamer. Always remember you have within you the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars to change the world." Here are a couple ideas to try to get legislators to pay attention when someone is presenting. Let me know what you think in the comments. Maybe I could orchestrate some sort of an action, like when a legislator says something that is disagreeable to the constituency we support, then supporters could stand up and face the back wall while that person is speaking. Or how about the next time I testify, I ask how much time I have and set a timer, then introduce myself, followed by 1 minute of silence while I look at my phone, answer messages, or perhaps turn around to the audience and wave. I would use the final 15 seconds to say, "This is what it feels like when someone testifies and you don't pay attention. We the people have plenty to say, and you should at least show us the courtesy of acting like you are paying attention." That's my DPRI, and I would bet Nima will have some thoughts on this matter.
Well, how did you know that, Doug? That's so weird. Actually, I've never testified, so thank you for doing that. Mostly because they probably freak out if they saw my name on the comment list. But I've never testified, but I've been to several committee meetings. And I'll tell you something, Doug, you bring up something that's really, really, I think a lot of people miss this and the nuances of government. Sorry, I had Fayette on my mind. But what's really missing is these the committee things are now a show. They're not anything more than just making sure that this is checked off of a box. You know, they have these unrealistic time limits that they set. They try to cram all this stuff into these committee meetings. And really and truly, nobody's learning anything. When you're sitting up there, they've already got their mind made up. They've already got their vote lined out. They're just probably sitting there texting a lobbyist trying to figure out where they're going for lunch. And so the thing is that's not what the committees were ever supposed to be. There's supposed to be a place. Sorry, dog. There's supposed to be a place where people come in and, share these concerns. Now it's just a dog and pony show. You go in, you get a certain amount of time. They're not swayed. It's really, really sad, and it's not democracy, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. And that's what is happening through our entire state government, right? It's all about show. It's not about learning. It's not about actually improving the Commonwealth. It's just playing to a base. So I'm sorry, Doug, that you went through that. I've seen it work in other states where there's actual exchange of information and people pay attention. And maybe I don't think it's just Kentucky, but I do think it's unfortunate. We should work on it. And I definitely think the next time you go there, you should do the minute of silence thing and see what they have to say about it. All right. So we need to move on. We are behind schedule. We have got to move to the campaign corner. That was news of the week. Really do appreciate all the news and the perspectives folks shared with us, especially the fun stuff in the comments. Thanks for throwing stuff in there. Now, really important to hear from this individual who is running for the 56th district. So Grayson Vandegrift. He is currently the mayor of Midway, throwing his hat in the ring to get to Frankfort so he can ignore Doug if he ever comes in front of him. Grayson, thank you so much for joining us this evening. Oh, we're muted. You are muted, and
I am still muted. I was off and running. Doug, I'll never ignore you. My wife once testified on a very personal subject where we lost a child at 18 weeks in utero, and it felt like the state legislature was in the doctor's office with us. And there was one legislator who was chomping his gum so loud while on his phone that you could hear it across the entire room. And it was the same. It was a very similar situation, Doug. And you're right; it's very undemocratic.
Yeah. Well, I'm sorry about your experience with your wife, but tell us why do you want to go from the mayor of Midway, which is a nice little town, to the circus in Frankfurt? Why? What are you doing, Grayson? I don't know.
You're not the first person to ask that. I've been in local government for 10 years as first a city council member, and then as a 2-term mayor. And frankly, if we're going to build our bench as Democrats, we have to start on the local level. And we have people here in Midway that are ready to take over. And I just didn't want to block the path. But really, more importantly, why I ran is because I could see that our current state representative is he's not serving the people of the 56th district. His claim to fame is that he wants to cut property taxes for private jet owners. And as mayor of Midway, we cut taxes ourselves. We cut regressive taxes like property taxes and sewer rates that affect working class families and folks who are struggling the most. So that really shows the difference between me and him right off the bat.
Those private planes, though, those taxes are.
Look, if there's any private jet owners in the 56th district, I'm sorry, I'm not your guy. I'm just not looking. I'm not looking out for your interests. Apparently, sorry about that, but I'll take my chances.
So that's awesome that you're running, and I think you're right about building a bench, and it does start at the local level, and I'm glad you're looking to get elevated a bit and get into the mix in Frankfurt. I'm sure Nima and Doug both have some stories they could share with you to try to disabuse you of that notion, because it's such a circus. But you're out there on the campaign trail, you're knocking on doors now, you're not running in, and we've decided that COVID doesn't really matter as much anymore. So I'm sure we're actually talking to people about your candidacy. What are you finding? How are people responding?
Got a great response. I've been knocking on doors really since before the primary, and I started back up in June right after the primary. And the response has been fantastic. I want to get to as many doors as I can first by myself before our volunteers start to join. I think it's such a powerful moment when a potential constituent can meet the person who's asking for their vote. And I believe so firmly in knocking on doors. It's started to become a little bit of a lost art in some parts of politics, but not all. I mean, a lot of the good candidates, a lot of Democrats this year are doing a great job of knocking on doors, I've noticed. Frankly, I'm going to tell you, I noticed a palpable shift after Dobbs. I just noticed a sense of the wind changing. And, my opponent doesn't even believe in exceptions for rape or incest or health of the mother. And I think that's crazy. And I'm going to be honest with the folks I'm talking to, and I'm talking to Democrats, independents, others, and even some more moderate Republicans for sure. And even those moderate Republicans say that's crazy. So the truth of the matter is, whether it's policies on public education, women's healthcare in general, Doug, I believe in giving you all your first COLA in 11 years. You haven't had a cost of living adjustment in 11 years. I believe in that. Me and my opponent could not be further apart on this. And I totally believe he's out of step with the people of the 56th district. And it's showing at the doors. It's showing. I mean, it's the proof's in the pudding.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's awesome. I think there's, that's clearly the strategy, right? Get to those folks you want to represent, have the conversations, hear what they're concerned about. And I'm glad to hear that kind of Roe versus Wade decision is waking people up, to who's really the party of freedom, right? Is it the one that wants government to kind of control your uterus, or is it the one that wants to make sure that, raped 10-year-olds have to have their kid, have to have the baby? So it's a pretty insane time for us. And I'm glad you're out there. How can folks help out? So you said you want to knock on the doors first, but I'm sure at some point you're going to welcome some volunteer help.
Oh, no doubt about it. I mean, I can't do it all by myself, and we are going to have volunteer days coming up. The easiest way to sign up to help is to go to GraysonForKY.com, and that's the word for, not the number. So GraysonForKentucky.com, KY.com. And you can sign up there. We're going to be doing lots of volunteer days. I really believe in getting to as many doors as possible. And frankly, what I'm talking about is not radical. I believe in a lot of sensible solutions, whether it's on abortion, whether it's on healthcare in general, whether it's on public education. I believe in sensible solutions to these extreme new laws that this current majority in Frankfurt is passing. And the momentum is building, and I feel really good. We just got to keep our foot in the pedal, and I need all the help I can get. I'm running this campaign like I've been as a mayor of Midway. It's all hands on deck. Anybody that wants to get involved can get involved. And we'll go out and we'll win this election, and I'll be the type of state representative I've been as a mayor, which is accessible and transparent. And you will always know what I'm up to, and you'll know what I'm thinking, because I'm going to be listening to what my constituents are thinking and then acting on their behalf. That's the kind of mayor I've been. It's the kind of state rep I'll be if I'm elected. That's
awesome. Well, I know that you're getting some volunteer support. One of our board members, made sure that you got on the show and that we were aware of your race, and we do really appreciate that. So keep up the great work. Thanks so much for joining us, and good luck between now and November 8th, which is, of course, 75 days to go. So, all right. So we're going to need to move on to our interview now. Really excited to have with us an author, a Kentucky author. We've had a couple on the show, but tonight we're very pleased to be joined by Farrah Alexander, who wrote the book Resistance in the Bluegrass, as well as Raising Resistance, I think it's called. And when I saw the name of that book and I saw that she was out talking about it, I'm like, this seems like somebody we should talk to. And so I reached out. She was super responsive, and now is joining us tonight. So Farrah, thank you so much for joining us. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
Awesome. So clearly you've never watched the show before, huh?
No.
So let me. So I saw the title. Your publicist sent over a copy, and I'm making my way through it. It looks like you found some really remarkable Kentuckians to kind of like tell their stories about how they have worked to make our Commonwealth just better. Tell us a little about some of those folks, and why'd you write the book, and what kind of response are you seeing?
Absolutely. So there are incredible change makers in Kentucky. I think too often red states and conservative areas are just kind of looked over, and people really discredit some of the progressive movements that happen there. But I think because the activists and organizers have to work extra hard to make progress, they're just even more amazing. And we have seen incredible progress. A lot of the plaintiffs in the marriage equality case that brought marriage equality to the entire United States came right here from Kentucky. And some of the attorneys have as well. We have just so many people who make incredible change in Kentucky, and I found it incredibly inspiring.
That's awesome. So yeah, what kind of response have you been getting from the book?
Well, a lot of people are learning things. One is getting in touch with certain organizations in Kentucky that exist that they weren't aware of. So that has been very, very helpful as of late. After the Dobbs decision, of course, it's been a mess in Kentucky. And in the book, I wrote about reproductive justice, and I highlighted some of the organizations that are just doing the best work. And that's exactly what they're doing. Kentucky Health Justice Network and the ACLU of Kentucky has been on the legal front and trying to protect access in the Commonwealth. And also I wrote about mutual aid in Eastern Kentucky. And after the terrible flooding that they had recently, they really sprung into action and helped a lot of people. So a lot of people have enjoyed getting in touch with those organizations that they weren't aware of and help support them.
Awesome. That's great. So you, like I said before, you elevate a few different stories. I know we're going to encourage everyone to go get the book, read the book. We'll put a link in the chat so folks can, find it easily. But who would you want to lift up here? Just, an example of an activist that brought about a lot of change.
Whew. Oh gosh, that's so hard because there's so many amazing ones. I will talk about Representative Attica Scott, who I interviewed in the book. She came up a couple of times, and she was kind enough to write the foreword for the book. I think that she has done an incredible job increasing political representation in Kentucky, which is very, very badly needed. And she's just always at the forefront of progressive change, and she's willing to make tough decisions and do hard things, and even if that means making sacrifices. And I think she's someone really incredible that we can all find inspiration from.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, Attica's been on the show. She's actually our first ever guest. Attica Scott was our first ever guest when we were Moscow Mitch Monday, and we were the Mitch McConnell Retirement Committee. She gladly showed up to talk about how Mitch McConnell is not helping our Commonwealth. We had horrible audio issues. So, it was really, we've come a long way, I think, in terms of the show. But yeah, she's definitely one of our favorites, and works diligently, constantly to make our Commonwealth better, for sure. Doug or Nima, do you have a question for Farrah?
I got to unmute, don't I?
Anymore.
I have not read the book. I do plan to, I'm going to buy it, but I pulled it up, or some information about it. And I'm going to ask you, who is the worst person that you highlighted in the book? And I think I know the answer.
Oh boy. Oh, that's really hard. The first, oh gosh.
Well, this wouldn't be a person that I guess that you interviewed, but I was reading the comment in 2018 when then Governor Matt Bevin was asked by our reporter on the ongoing teacher strike.
Yes.
And I remember that, and I know a lot of us remember that, and I know that I'm going to be interested to read the book and see your analysis of that situation.
Thanks. Yeah, Matt Bevin is terrible. And, fortunately, I think that was a great example of how Kentuckians stood up and said, this is not us. These are not our values. And they showed him and they voted him out. And so, yeah, Matt Bevin, terrible, but great example of how Kentuckians stood against him. I mean, overall, I think the book is very positive, and there's a lot of aspirational stories, but there's a lot of pain too. And, because I did write about some really difficult things like racial justice issues in the past couple of years in Louisville. We dealt with terrible issues with police brutality and protest response. And then I also interviewed Ira Grupper, who is now, I don't know how old he is, but he might be in his 70s or 80s. And he was involved in the civil rights movements of the 1960s with John Lewis and got arrested in Jackson, Mississippi. And so, yeah, there's a lot of activists that have dealt with some like truly evil situations. And so there's some villains in this story, but I think that the heroes are the highlights of the book. Yeah.
Absolutely. So you do tell a bit of the story about the teacher fight?
Yes. One chapter. So each chapter is about basically a different area of activism. And actually, if you're short on time and you haven't read the book yet, each chapter can really stand on its own. There's some intersection, but they all stand on their own. So one chapter is about education. And so, of course, wrote about the teacher strike and the response to Matt Bevin, the bully, who tried to bully Kentuckians, and Kentuckians didn't have it, and they voted him out. So, yeah, it was fun.
That's awesome. Cool. So yeah, obviously, Nima's a little familiar with that fight. Yeah, and I see here you spotlight environmental issues. It seems like you've definitely spent some time with some of the coal communities as well. And obviously these are communities that are going through a lot right now with the flooding. But you mentioned earlier the kind of mutual aid associations. If our viewers aren't familiar with those, can you give us the kind of like thumbnail sketch of what exactly that is and why is that a powerful model for helping communities?
Absolutely. So there were a couple good examples of this. One was, I'm based in the Louisville, Kentucky area. So one is a Louisville, Kentucky organization that I really, really love called Change Today, Change Tomorrow. And they really try to lift up the Black community, people who deal with food insecurity and problems like that. My daughter may interrupt us. I'm so sorry. And so one thing about a lot of large nonprofit organizations is that there can be a lot of red tape. And so they may help people, they might help feed them, but they got to fill out some forms first. They have to go through a process. And so in a mutual aid situation, just a moment, please. They don't ask questions, they just feed them. If someone says, I am hungry, they give them food. And so with the big mutual aid network in Eastern Kentucky, it's very, very grassroots. And a lot of it happens online on platforms like Facebook. And it may be someone just post in the group, I need to feed my kids tonight. I need some type of household item. And someone who is able to help, that may be essentially their neighbors, speak up and say, okay, sure, I'll do that for you. And that's it. There's, like I said, not a lot of red tape. There's not a difficult process. And so they just help people, because a lot of times with large nonprofit organizations, there's certain qualifications that people need to meet. It may be an income cap or sobriety requirements, where in mutual aid, there's no qualifiers. They just are out to help people.
Yeah, no. As we were talking about earlier, FEMA rejecting people's claims, like that doesn't help in a mutual aid association. Awesome. Nima or Doug, any other questions for Farrah?
I noted that one of your chapters is political representation, and we've talked about that on the show in the past. It seems like we have a lot of white male attorneys, and there's not a good representation of the people of the Kentucky in the legislature, and I'm certain you go into that.
Absolutely. You nailed it. So when you look at the General Assembly in Kentucky, you look at the demographics, they're all mostly old, white, male, and wealthy. And that is definitely not reflective of Kentucky. In Kentucky, we have some of the poorest counties in the entire United States. And we have a lot of unique issues that go along with some issues that Kentuckians face. And so that's why I brought up Attica Scott, because she is amazing for political representation. And she was very, very encouraging when it comes to, just asking her, what can we do? How can we increase political representation in Kentucky? And one thing she says is run for office. Like, I'm just keeping the seat warm for you. We want you to run. We want more people involved. And so that's what I would love to see. I would love to see the General Assembly of Kentucky be more reflective of the people they're elected to serve.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's fantastic. That's a great takeaway. And the book does, as I've said before, like I haven't had time to look through all of it, but it looks fantastic. And it looks like you're really lifting up some wonderful examples of folks here in Kentucky who are working hard to make change, which, that's what we're here for. So if you're looking for some inspiration, check out Resistance in the Bluegrass and learn some amazing stories about Kentuckians you may never have heard of before. Because they're not high profile folks, right? But they're doing really important work. So thank you for joining us, and thank you for sharing some of those stories, Farrah.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed it.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right, so
Thanks.
we're gonna move on. Do our kind of close out call to action because they're you want to be like the people in Farrah's book, getting stuff done for the Bluegrass. And we are going to give you some super easy ways to get involved, make a little bit of a difference. Again, 75 days between now and November 8th. What are you going to do with those fleeting days? So one thing you could do, you could join Election Central. So our friends at Forward Kentucky have put some time and energy into a wonderful new online resource to keep track of candidates and endorsements, fundraising, all the info you need to know over these next 75 days. Head to forwardky.com/election-central-home to find out more, to sign up. You might need to join Forward Kentucky to do that, but you should, because it's a really important resource, and it's one of the few kind of reliable progressive media networks in our state. So support them for sure. All right, next thing you can do, you can protect Kentucky access to abortion, right? If Kansas can do it, why can't Kentucky? No reason. Planned Parenthood and the ACLU are working hard to oppose the constitutional amendment to ban all abortion access in Kentucky. They need your help. You can visit protectkentucky.com to find out more and to sign up to help out. Again, that's on the ballot on November 8th. That's Amendment 2. And as we heard from Grayson, I think earlier, people are paying attention. This is an issue that matters. People do not want to go, do not want abortion access completely shut down in our state. It's insane that there wouldn't be exceptions for rape and incest. And it's absolutely something that we need to fight for sure. All right. And we've got an ask for you too. We're right now at about 270 responses on our poll. So here's the thing. We know that clown college in Frankfurt is absolutely a circus. These guys get together. They, figure out new ways to make abortion even more illegal. They find new ways to make it even easier to kind of carry a gun in our Commonwealth. They find new ways to take Andy Beshear's power, and that's not what we need from our legislators. So we've got a poll. You take it 5 minutes, pick the 5 worst actions of this terrible, horrible, no good, very bad legislature. When we hit our magic 300 number, so we're just 30 responses away, we're going to share that with the media. We're going to help remind voters what the GOP supermajority is doing to our Commonwealth with the power that we give them as voters. And again, 75 days between now and the election, we want to remind people, what are you voting for when you actually show up at the polls? So that's what we're going to try to do. Has everyone here taken the poll? Nima, have you taken the poll?
I don't think I have. I'll have to do that. That'll give us one more.
You're gonna need to take the poll. Now we're just,
I don't know how I could choose just one.
It's very challenging, and it's not a pleasant experience to be like reminded of how bad they are. I'm
Right.
sorry about that. Like,
I know.
but it's important. Eat your vegetables, right?
Right.
All right, so that's any other stories that we wanted to cover. We got maybe a minute left. I know that there's something we talked about before that we hadn't actually brought up at the on the show. I see Doug raising his hand.
I was just going to say I was the second person to fill out the poll.
All right.
Somebody beat me.
Extra points for Doug. All right. So, Nima, we had seen big news today from the White House that Joe Biden was going to follow through on his campaign promise, which, again, I think that's a good idea. I think you should try to follow through on all your campaign promises, especially before the midterm election, when people are going to be like voting on whether they think your folks should stay in office. But yeah, big news about that $10,000 of student debt, $20,000 if you got money through Pell Grants or whatever it was, I think. And then there's some means testing involved if you make over $120,000.
125, yeah.
25. But what do you think?
Well, it was just like I was saying, right before the show, here Andy Barr is sending out this thing saying, well, a third of the wealthiest people, are the ones that are going to benefit from this. And I'm like, well, that means 2/3 are not. And, when you read these things that these politicians put out, you have to read and be like, and question, like you just can't be like, oh my God, a third. Because again, 2/3 are the ones that are in the hole.
And it's like, did you not hear when the White House said there's means testing? So like, okay, fine. We're not going to spend any money on that 1/3, but the 2/3 that actually need the help, like they're going to get some help. Yeah. It's outrageous. Poor Andy Barr. Can't do math. Poor his constituents that don't do the math and don't call him out on it. But what do you guys think? Are you bitter? Is anyone bitter because they paid their student loans and now other people are going to get a bit of help?
No, because again, rising tides raise all ships, right? And so it's like I don't understand. Well, I do understand. We've become such a me. What about me? Culture anymore that I'm not really surprised that we're having this pushback. But you know what? I don't get to pick where my taxes go. If I did, I would totally say, let's wipe out student debt. Let's wipe out medical debt. Let's do these things. That is where I want my tax dollars to go. But I understand the system is different, right? Like I can't just pick and choose what I prefer. It's supposed to be for the common good. And too many times, we sit there and wring our hands about stuff that really are going to help us all. But there's always this, well, I did this, you could do this too. Well, I'm Gen X, and I'll tell you, we got hosed on student loans, man. Hosed, and I'm still bitter about it. And, so whatever we can do to help folks, I'm all for it. Yeah,
absolutely. I think there are people in Gen X like carrying student debt to their grave, right? It's because, the prices of college went up exorbitantly. And that was, absolutely a generation's like, well, you got to go to college. But you know what? We don't all need to go to college. And if you are not inspired to go to college, don't go to college. The world definitely I know how much I pay my plumber. That is a fair job. That is a legit job, and you can make a living and not have to carry a ton of college debt with you for sure. But I feel like it's a thing. Like our society needs to take a hard look at why are we allowing why is the cost of an education so crazy high, right? And I think there's some significant questions there for sure. But at any rate, Doug, you seem to be raising your hand, so you're such a polite individual. I want to acknowledge that, and I want to encourage that type of behavior. So I'll give you some space to say something. What do you have to say?
Thank you very much. When Biden announced the program, Mitch thought about it for, I don't know, maybe 10 or 15 minutes. And then he came out and he called it student loan forgiveness. And he used the S word, speaking to his base, socialism.
Yeah, socialism, that boogeyman. Anytime the government does something to help like actual real humans, it's socialism. They never throw about when they're like helping big corporations, or as as Mitch calls it, his base, right? Scott Chamber of Commerce. That's where Mitch shows up. So weird that he's not hearing a lot about January 6th from that crowd. Oh wait, no, that's Andy Barr. Not hearing from me. But yeah, anyway, folks, thank you so much for spending some time with us this evening. I'm going to close out the show. Always kudos to my co-host. Send good vibes to Kimberly. Kimberly was just had a scheduling difficulty tonight, so she couldn't join us. We'll get her back in the co-host chair soon. And we're going to be back next week. We have another awesome guest. We're going to close out our survey of all the congressional candidates in Kentucky. Jimmy Osbrooks, who is running for the 1st district against James Comer. That insane district now stretches from Frankfort to Paducah. He is running that district. He is going to have to. I hope he has an electric vehicle, because the gas prices, although they've come down, are significant, and he's going to need to put a lot of miles in to get from one corner of that district to the next. Progress Kentucky is a nonprofit organization registered with the Kentucky Secretary of State, organized as a 501c4. We are affiliated with the Indivisible Project and the Commonwealth Alliance Voter Engagement, CAVE. Progress Kentucky's goal is to educate, organize, increase voter turnout, and advance a progressive agenda through civic engagement. Oh, I want to go ahead and say one other thing that we are. We are also a nonprofit recognized by Facebook, so we can now, in fact, run politically engaging ads on Facebook, which that was harder to do than registering with the Secretary of State. I want to tell you the truth. Production this evening was by NATO, except for when I made sure that we ran Doug's theme song. Thank you, Nate, for that theme song and the other theme song. They're fantastic theme songs. If you want to get a theme song written, you should turn to Nate. You can also hear other awesome songs that are not theme songs. They're great songs. He once wrote an amazing political song about Mitch McConnell. I am very much hoping that he will write an amazing political song about Rand Paul, because I think, again, in the 75 days we've got, one of the things that we should do on that 75 days is get a theme song to get rid of Rand Paul, for sure. If you miss our weekly live stream on Facebook, don't worry. You can rewatch the shows. You can see our source links on Facebook and our show notes. You've got our audio podcasts available on Apple, on Google, on Spotify, really wherever you get your podcasts. We're probably going to be there. The logo and some graphic content was provided by Couchfire Media. They're online. All right, that's our show. Thanks for joining us. Go ahead and play that theme song on our way out.